Kristine Pacholski. This is my AVMA video for radiology. My student ID number is 3252091. This is my ID. And let's get started. Alright, so now we're going to do our question and answer portion of the radiology AVMA task video. This is Jeffrey. He takes care of me here and does all of my instructing.
Morning. Here we go. Right through the questions we'll go. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
What is a radiation monitoring device called?
A dosimetry badge.
How does it work to measure exposure to radiation?
It evaluates different ionized radiation and captures it on a photographic film, which holds the exposure for the individual person.
How do we obtain readings?
Monthly, quarterly, or yearly, depending on the exposure of your clinic and how many radiation x-rays you take in your hospital. Those badges go out to the manufacturer, which reads them and maintains any records for each individual's dosimetry badge for their lifetime.
When should it be worn?
Anytime there's any radiation exposure, so taking x-rays, especially when you're within the 6 feet of the primary beam, or any kind of other radiation where you're being exposed to scattered radiation.
Where should it be worn when taking x-rays?
It should be worn on the outside of the lead gown at the level of the thyroid collar.
What is the MPD for veterinary staff annually?
OSHA requires that everybody has less than 5 REMs per year with a maximum dose of the age of the person minus 18 times 5 REMs.
Using a dosimetry report, show yourself interpreting the dosimetry readings for one team member.
So we have our dosimetry report right here. Fortunately here we do practice a lot of hands-free radiology, so we don't get exposed very often. As you can see for Dr. David Bush, he has as low enough exposure that it is not readable, but if you look, the report does carry the lifetime report as well, and that's the report.
Yeah, I think state if he or she is below the MPD for the year.
Okay. So as you can see on the report, since he is not readable and as low as possible, he is underneath the recommended exposure.
Okay, so that finishes that section. The next section is general radiation safety. List and explain 3 methods of restraint used in radiology.
So 3 methods that we try to use is chemical restraint, which is the most ideal because it allows you to use as hands-free positioning as possible, and it allows the technician to be least exposed as possible. Another way of restraint is manual restraint, so us as technicians would manually restrain the animal, making sure that our body is not in the primary beam. And the other way would be assisting devices and positioning aids. So sandbags would be an example, which would help you position the animal in the right position for the x-ray.
Discuss and show 3 positioning aids that are used in radiology. You will demonstrate usage of these aids when taking images later in the video.
So 3 positioning aids that we use here would be ropes, which we do use frequently, a sandbag, which would help position your animal, and a V-trough to also help.
Discuss physical protective barriers that can be utilized in the radiology suite other than PPE.
So other than PPE, things to protect yourself would be a lead-lined wall or a lead barrier. Here we do have a lead-lined door, which we do stand behind during our x-rays.
Explain how distance and the exposure time setting on the machine can be utilized as safety measures.
So the farther away you are from the primary beam, the exposure decreases. It's directly the farther you are away, the exposure decreases by a fourth. It's square law.
Yeah, it has to do with feet and inverse square law. When the distance is doubled, the intensity of the beam is decreased by a fourth.
So the farther you are away from the beam, the less exposure you're going to have, which is better for yourself and your health.
Explain why no portion of any human, shielded or unshielded, should be exposed to the primary beam. Do not simply state that no one should be exposed to the beam because it is dangerous.
So you don't want to expose yourself to the primary beam due to that you're getting direct exposure to the radiation. The scattered radiation is what you should only be allowed to be exposed to. Primary radiation can cause no effect to your cell, effect that damage that can be repaired by the cell, or damage that cannot be repaired, or cell damage that can lead to cell death. This can also carry on to damaging your cellular DNA, which can be passed on to your children and further generations, which can harm you or your children in your future. So exposing your cells to the radiation is not good for you. It's not good for further generations. It also releases toxins into your cells from the cellular water being ionized and releasing hydrogen peroxide, which can damage your cells. So in conclusion, exposing yourself to primary radiation will lead to further damage in the future, which is accumulative.
Explain why non-essential personnel should be removed from the X-ray suite during exposures.
Again, any exposure to radiation is bad exposure, whether it's primary or scattered. And being exposed to even scattered radiation can cause you to have cell damage, and if we can avoid that by lessening the individuals being exposed, is best. So getting everybody who's not essential to having that x-ray done is the best for everybody else, because you are responsible for everybody in that x-ray suite.
Explain why we should make every effort to obtain diagnostic images on the first exposure.
This helps decrease the amount of time that you are exposed to the radiation. I believe I also forgot to address that in the question in regards to time and distance. The amount of times you're taking the x-ray exposes you to more radiation. You can also decrease that time by having the MAS set as low as possible, which decreases the amount of time during the x-ray that radiation is being released. The less exposure, the less times you have to do the x-ray, the better off you are.
Explain the scientific reasoning for restrictions on pregnant women and people under the age of 18. Do not simply state because it is dangerous. You must explain why they are so much more sensitive to radiation.
So individuals under the age of 18 are growing, and which means that their cells are turning over, they're having new cellular growth. And the radiation damage is directly proportional to the rate of proliferation. So if you're having a lot of proliferation in your body as you're growing, the effects of the radiation from the x-ray is going to be increased. So individuals under the age of 18 should not be in the x-ray room. As well goes for pregnant women. There is a fetus which is growing, and there is a massive amount of proliferation and a massive amount of cell growth, which can make the fetus very susceptible to the damage of radiation.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to talk PPE. So first, I'm going to make a visual inspection of all of my PPE. I'm going to make sure there's no cracks or damage to the lead inside of my my thyroid collar, my lead apron. So I don't see any visual damage or cracks. I'm also going to check my lead gloves. And you check your PPE to make sure that there are no cracks or damage, because if there are any cracks, the scattered radiation can make it through and that can get to you. So first, I'm going to apply my thyroid collar, protect my thyroid. Now I'm going to apply my lead apron. A little bit petite, so I gotta make sure it's nice and snug. Then put my badge at the level of my thyroid. And I'm going to put my lead gloves on. Get in. And now I am all protected for x-rays. Another piece of equipment that we could use that we don't have available here are radiation protective goggles. And that is my PPE. We are going to set up Rue's x-ray in our VIA manager. So I'm going to go to Rue's account, going to go to her invoice, going to invoice a digital x-ray. It also comes up with our consulting's x-ray. Going to go down to the bottom, hit image study, and then hit OK. This will send it electronically over to my x-ray tower. That's Rue.
Yeah.
We're going to go over to our x-ray tower. We are going to
Are
hit.
you ready to move her in?
Almost.
Or not yet?
Must not have. Hold on, I forgot to get out of the invoice. She makes fun of me every time. So we're gonna go over to our x-ray tower. Going to go to my requests. Go to Rue. Gonna add. Gonna hit OK. Now I'm gonna enter my patient information. She is 6 pounds. Her last name is Goodrich. And we're gonna do 2 views today. So I also need an abdominal film for Rue. I need a right lateral for her, and then we are going to x-ray her right front radius and ulna. And that's gonna be a cranial caudal view. And I'm gonna hit next. So now comes up with the request and go. So we are now gonna do a CRCD on Rue. She is, and I'm gonna use my chart to find out my parameters. She is about 6 pounds. We're gonna do an extremity, so I need to do 80 kVp and 3.5 MAS. So my kVps are at 80 and my MAS just needs to go down. And now I'm gonna position Rue. In ventral recumbency. I'm going to extend her leg all the way forward. I'm going to use some tape to tape her leg. In the film, I'm going to get just distal to the carpus and proximal to the elbow. And move bruised little body. I'm just going to get lateral. I'm going to put my PPE on. Amy's going to stand 6 feet away from the primary beam. I'm now going to put my marker onto the film. It's a little crooked, but I'm going to put my right marker laterally to the right of the elbow, not covering any of the bone. And that is the radius and on the film.
Go.
Okay, so now we are going to set up our film for Flint. His last name is Bush. His owner's name is Heather. Gonna go into Flint's invoice. Gonna store a radiograph. Gonna go to image study. Okay, which will send it over to our x-ray tower. Now we're gonna go over. So I'm gonna get out of our last study we did. Gonna go into our requests, select Flint, add. He's about 64 pounds. We are gonna do a VD chest and a VD pelvis. Send. So now that our image study is all set, I'm gonna go get Flint. Okay, so now we are gonna do a VD thorax film on Flint. We're going to use a V trough and the ropes. Amy's gonna help me get him into the trough. Head out, and I'll put a sandbag under his head. Alright, so ready, 1, 2, 3. Good boy. Good boy. Good buddy. Just a good boy. I'm gonna put the ropes around his feet. We're gonna make sure he's straight. Gonna extend his legs. Well, good boy, Flint. So we're gonna extend his legs as far as possible, cranially over his head. It's okay, buddy. Good boy. Gonna put his head on straight. Put his body on straight. And then I'm gonna use my chart again. He is about 60 pounds. So for thorax, I need it to be 80 kVp and 5 MAS. I'm gonna go up to 5, and my 80 is already there. Turn off my light. I'm gonna collimate. The center of the film is going to be at the midline. The lateral borders are going to be the body wall, and then it's going to be the last lumbar spine is going to be the caudal border, and the thoracic inlet is going to be the cranial. Good boy. I'm going to take one last peek. He looks pretty straight to me. So we're all gonna remove ourselves from x-ray, and we're gonna stand behind the lead door. So I'm gonna start the rotor. Amy's grabbing the handle. Good boy, Flint. And then we're all set. And check my film. Looks good. I'm gonna put my label, the cranial part of the film right next to the axilla. And that is a thoracic VD film. So now we're going to do a VD pelvis for OFA. Flint has been sedated with some diazepam and torbitrol. So now we're just gonna move the trough up so that it is not part of our hip x-rays.
I'm gonna slide him out.
You pull and I'll slide.
Easy, bud. Okay, you're okay.
Good boy, Flint.
You're okay. Come on up here. Good boy.
Good boy.
I know, we just wake you up. Sorry, buddy. Stay, bud. Fine.
Good boy. So we're going to extend his front legs cranially. Okay, bud. We're going to use our chart again to find out our exposure. Again, he's about 60 pounds. I need 80 kVp and 10 MAS. So I'm going to turn I'm at 80 kVp, going up to 10 MAS. The center of my film is going to be on the midline.
Oh,
About the patella tuberosity. My cranial border is going to be the crest of the ilium. My caudal border is going to be right distal to the patellas. I think we need to up more. All of them. Just go. I'm gonna grab my pedal. Going to put my PPE on. Turn my light back on. I'm going to straighten up his hips. Rotate his patellas in and stretch parallel. I'm going to make sure that my hands are out of the film. Good. Move them a little this way. There we go. We turn the light back on. Yep. And then Amy and Larissa are going to move 6 feet away from the primary beam. Good boy, Flint. We're going to let Flint rest. I am going to do that film one more time, but it is slightly crooked. But I am going to put the right marker on the cranial portion of the film by the crest of the ilium. And that is how you do a pelvis.
Okay.
Alrighty, so now we're going to receive some films from our computer server and where our x-ray films are saved. So we use eFilm at the hospital, so I did bring up eFilm. You can either go here or find it on the desktop, wherever it may be. So I'm going to bring it up, log in. It does take a minute for it to get it together. Or two. There we go. So we can either go to the remote server, which brings up all of the films on our server that go through eFilm. You can either search today, yesterday, we can clear our filters, and we have multiple options. So I'm just gonna look up an x-ray that I took quite a while ago for Lucy. So, Pacholski. And I'm gonna hit search. So, and I'm gonna look for the thoracic films that I took on June 26, 2019. And those come up, and we can review those films. Just hit the next button, and there you go. Fortunately, this dog didn't end up having cancer, so we do see a bunch of fluid in the abdomen, and we do see some focal tumors in the lungs, but that would be how I would bring up those films from that time, and that is how you use e-film. Alright, so today we're going to do a barium swallow on Flint. I have already put my ties on because we are going to do this rather quickly. He is going to eat his barium right now. When I lay him down on a right lateral position, I am going to collimate from the base of his skull to about T12. And I'm going to center it on his esophagus because we are going to see if this man can swallow. Yes. Are you hungry? And then please, hungry. Good boy. And I have already set my parameters to the right parameters using my chart. Good boy. So now that we've eaten all of the barium, I am going to lay him down. Lay down. Good boy. Lay down. No. Good boy, Flint. Lay down. Lay down. That's a good handsome man. Yeah. He's a good boy. He's going to lay down. Lay down. I know, buddy. It's hard. It's so hard. He's going to lay down. Good boy. So I'm going to put my gloves on. Good boy. Good boy. We try to do this as fast as we can, but sometimes it doesn't go quick. So Miss Beth is now going to step out of the x-ray. I'm going to start my,
I'll just double check.
I'm going to start my rotor.
I don't want to get any of the other ones.
And that is a barium swallow.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Jeff Savitsky. I am Kristine's mentor here at the Colchester Veterinary Hospital for her radiology class. She has done very well with this class. She has a very good understanding and grasp at all of the aforementioned procedures, techniques, and everything that's listed under this radiology log. To me, she has minimal to no weaknesses and is able to grasp all concepts very well. I don't think I have any additional comments because I think she's done very well with this section of the course.